Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Los Banos Talk. My name is Justin Collins. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about our local school district, and more specifically, we're going to talk about kids returning to school, right? We're going to talk about the recent decisions to have kids return to school on a hybrid schedule. I'm going to talk about some of the controversies regarding why our students haven't returned to a 5 day schedule and so on and so forth. So, if you want those kind of questions answered, and if you want to talk about why our kids aren't back fully in school yet, then this episode you definitely want to pay attention to because I'm going to go into all that in great detail in just a moment, right after a brief message from our sponsor. And we're back. Thanks for watching. So, as some of you may or may not have noticed recently in the news, there was an article put out by ABC 30 that was published Monday, which talks about Merced Union High School bringing back seniors to 5 days a week. And so, what a lot of people don't understand is that the CDC guidelines have essentially changed, and that students can, in fact, come back to school even if we're in the purple tier. They just have to maintain a certain distance, which in this case it's 3 feet, and they have to wear masks. And that's essentially it. If they follow those protocols, they're allowed to return. And the governor specifically gave a large portion of money to schools to try to accommodate and really to incentivize them going back. Now, the minimum to get this money was to kind of go to a hybrid schedule. And it seems so far our district has basically opted to do the bare minimum required to still get the extra money, but not really fully go back to school. And so a lot of you might be wondering, well, what's the holdup and why is this? To be frank and honest with you, it really comes down to politics. And I hate to say that, but it's true. You see, for our kids to really go back to school, what needs to happen is that the teachers union and the school board need to come to some kind of agreement that the teachers union is comfortable and acceptable with and the board is comfortable and acceptable with, so that a way we can go back to having class 5 days a week like we used to before the pandemic. Now, a lot of parents have brought up the fact that we're not really privy to the information. And the thing is when you have something like this discussion, right? You have negotiations, both parties can't talk about what they're negotiating for because it has to do with employee stuff, personnel stuff, and it can really mess with negotiations and set everything back if information is put out, right? So they can't really talk about what they're negotiating over, and that's why there's not any transparency. Now, a lot of people might feel like that's really unfair because this is a matter that affects all of us. It's government related, and we feel that there needs to be transparency. There would be after it's done, but not during. And this is why. Now, there's a couple things we do know. When the decision came down to allow for sports again, our district actually moved pretty swiftly on it, held a special meeting, and got a contract for us to do the weekly testing, etc. And that's why we had football games again in town. That's why we were able to have the crosstown clash recently. As far as where individual board members stand, I can't really speak for them all, but generally, from what I can tell, they seem to want the kids to go back to class. Another aspect of this that I want to discuss is teachers' union. A lot of people really want to vilify the teachers union and teachers, and there's a few things I'd like to make clear. One is that teachers and the teachers union are separate, right? There's a lot of individual teachers that don't really agree with the union or agree with everything the union does, or maybe they generally support the union but not on this particular issue, or they disagree on things. Just because someone's a teacher does not mean that they're part of that large group that supports, a certain thing or a particular agenda, right? We don't really know what the demands are, but generally speaking, virtually every teachers union across the state and in the country really has pretty much wanted the same things. And it's things that are actually pretty reasonable and everyone really deserves. They just simply want to go back to a work environment that is safe, and they want to feel confident that they'll be taken care of and supported. That seems to be the basis of what most of these unions have asked for. It's varied in specifics, whether it be maybe some unions have said we want all the teachers vaccinated before we go back, or maybe they've said, we want certain teachers maybe can stay at home if they fall into a category that's more at risk to COVID or something like that. I mean, they have different varying, things that they want. And I don't know what our specific union wants. But what I can say is this: there's always two sides to a negotiation. And in this particular case, we have the board and we have the teachers union. And from what I've seen, just from looking at the meetings and stuff, I would say that there's been quite a bit of pettiness, really in all directions, to be honest. And so I'm not really that shocked that negotiations don't seem to be going well. And the reason why I say they don't seem to be going well, I personally have not been to the negotiations and I have no way of knowing how they're going. But what I do know is that other districts are opening up, other districts have come to some kind of middle ground and understanding, and ours hasn't. So that kind of leads me to believe, I guess they're not going that well because they don't seem to be getting done. But when I mentioned pettiness, what am I talking about specifically? Well, let's take one of the complaints that the teachers union has had regarding the board. So one of the complaints that the teachers union has had is that during this time, even though they're doing remote learning, they have forced teachers to go back to school and do the remote learning from an empty classroom. And they've said, hey, why can't we stay at home and do this? Other districts do that. It would save us time in terms of commuting and we'd be a lot safer. This defeats the point, and they basically, the argument was, you seem to think that you can keep us safer than we can keep ourselves safe. And the argument is that this doesn't really make sense. It's kind of childish, it's kind of babysitting, and it's just kind of like a petty thing, and so there's kind of been a lot of this kind of pettiness. It almost feels like there's like a little bit of a going back and forth between them, and a not very good relationship right now between the teachers union and our board. And so this is really creating some serious friction. And I think that's really what we're seeing here. In terms of pettiness, the other direction, pretty much the last four, maybe five board meetings, there's almost always a comment, into the public comments, into the public record, usually from uh, someone from the teachers union, many of which have been from the teachers union president, Jennifer Wilkin, regarding things like posts the board president has made, vilifying the union, or things he said about COVID, etc. And while I think those were completely valid, concerns that were raised, I'm not saying they weren't. What I am simply saying is that you can tell there's a lot of animosity towards one another. You can tell that they're not really working together. They kind of seem to see each other as basically enemies. And so I can only imagine that negotiations aren't going well. So, in terms of who's to blame, I can't really say, the board's to blame or the teachers' unions to blame. Maybe both are really kind of to blame. But what I can observe just from watching the meetings and paying attention, and from what I can tell, there's a really kind of toxic, hostile environment between the board and teachers and teachers union, and it's creating an environment in where not a lot's getting done. It seems like the issue of returning to class or not is kind of approached like a zero sum game. Little petty games are kind of being played back and forth. It feels like to kind of get back at each other. And the people who really lose in all this are our kids or the students. And so everyone has a legitimate, reason for why they want what they want. But I think we need to kind of take a step back for a moment and kind of go, hey, who are we really doing this for? I don't know who's got the hard line in the sand that's refusing to budge. I'm not sure if the board has demands that are unreasonable and the teachers union won't budge, or if it's the other way around and maybe the teachers union has demands and the board won't budge. I have no idea, and none of us will know and probably never will. But someone needs to move. Someone needs to take the first step. Now, while a lot of this is my opinion and speculation, I will say this. If you go back and watch a lot of the meetings, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. You'll see these comments come up over and over and over again. You'll see this back and forth kind of vilification, and you're going to kind of see that it does feel there's a palpable, tension there between the two groups, and it shouldn't be that way. It's not a zero sum game. It's about the students first, and supporting the parents, and supporting teachers is supporting students. And the board should want what's best for its teachers and its students. And it's not like that's a binary choice. Like, you can either be pro teacher or pro student. It doesn't work that way. You can most certainly be both, and really being both is both. And what I mean by that is being pro teacher is also being pro student, and vice versa, because you can support and help teachers help their students. And so I really think we need to get out of this A or B binary vilification kind of thing, and move forward. And someone needs to, I guess, swallow their pride or something. But somebody needs to take that step, reach out the olive branch. Some kind of negotiation needs to be reached. And that's really what it would take at this point. So, we want basically the real reason why we're kind of at this standstill. Unfortunately, it's politics. And sometimes when I say the word politics, I just mean us deciding how to govern ourselves. In this particular case, I kind of mean the negative kind, which is people kind of playing games for different reasons, and it having a lot to do with ambitions and personal goals within the political system, and agendas and stuff here locally. And it's really sad that that's going on, because it's at the detriment to our kids, and it's creating a lot of problems for all of us. And look, maybe you're going to say, you know what, Justin, you're full of it. And that's fine. You're welcome to think that. But if we're to be real here, and we look at the other districts around us and they're starting to open up, we look at other places doing it, and we're kind of one of the only ones not. At some point, we have to go, okay, I guess the problem's got to do with us. And again, there's only two parties involved here. So, it's got to be one of them or both of them. But something needs to happen. Something needs to change. And because of the way negotiations work, we're not really going to hear directly from them. So we're not going to know who's really the one holding it up, right? We're not going to get those answers. I wish I could give them to you, but I can't. And so the best I can do is speculate based on what I can observe and see. And from where I'm sitting, that's pretty much what the situation looks like. I hope that brought some clarity for you. I hope that maybe addressed some of your concerns. I really don't want you to take away from this video the idea that a particular group is to blame or that you need to be anti board or anti teachers union. What I want you to get from this is that really what I'm getting at is this: we can do better. And the problems we're having here are locally specific and really from a leadership problem. And it's not the kind of problem that is really everywhere. No, this is kind of a problem that's becoming more and more an us problem, and it's sad to see, and it's affecting our kids. It's affecting us, and you deserve to know about it. And hopefully, something gets done soon. Once again, if you haven't already, please like, follow, subscribe to Los Banos Talk. We have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and of course, losbanostalk.com. You can subscribe to the free newsletter on losbanostalk.com and get articles sent directly to your email. You can also become a supporter of Los Banos Talk for just $4.99 a month, and with that, you'll get exclusive content, behind the scenes footage, and a lot of other great stuff as well. Plus, you'll get to see the videos first and ad free, and you'll get membership into the exclusive group, Los Banos Talk Nation, where I get to be a little bit more candid and open with people about my opinions and feelings on certain things. Once again, my name is Justin Collins, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.